Here we're following a group of characters who seek refuge in a shopping mall after a zombie epidemic breaks out. Hi, welcome back to my channel and my review of Dawn of the Dead from 2004. This is actually Zack Snyder's first movie that he ever directed, and it's also a remake to the Romero classic of the same name from 1978. So with Rebel Moon coming up fairly soon, I really wanted to go back and revisit a number of Zack Snyder's films, and I thought I'd start with this first one, Dawn of the Dead. And it's actually quite interesting to watch this again now, given that most of us now really know Zack Snyder for doing these, massive 3-4 hour superhero epic blockbusters, whereas this was a minimal budget, a much smaller scale horror movie, and only being an hour and a half long, which is very strange for him. So yeah, quite a different film, but I think even despite that, you can tell very much that it's still a Zack Snyder movie, that he obviously had creative control over this, because, if you've seen a number of his movies, he's got quite a distinct style about the way he does things, like visually especially, something that does sort of separate him from other directors, and it's something by Zack Snyder. And that's very much the same here with Dawn of the Dead. And this really, it's an incredible first film, and it is the movie that really just made me fall in love with him as a director. I think some people would probably argue that this is a more shallow film than the original, given that Dawn of the Dead that George Romero did was putting in a lot of social commentary, a lot of satire, and having the zombie apocalypse kind of be this metaphor for relevant issues at the time that he was interested in. And with this, it's more of an out-and-out horror action movie. It's not really doing too much more than that. And that's not necessarily a criticism of it. I think if you're doing a remake, you need to do your own thing, unless you're really adding to something of the original. If the original has already done something well, in my opinion, there's not really much point in just making that film again exactly the same way the director did it originally, because, well, there's just no point to it. And I think the problem is when you've got movies from the 70s that are tackling, social issues, relevant political issues and stuff like that, 30 years on, those things aren't going to hit the same way. There's going to be different things that are relevant now. So to kind of remake that exactly wouldn't really make much sense, or certainly wouldn't work as well now as it did back then. And so I like that they've just kind of chosen to take that story template. It's a great one as well, having a group of survivors hiding out in a shopping mall while society breaks down around them. That's a great idea for a zombie movie. So I like they've just taken that template here, and then Zack Snyder's done his own thing with that. I think this was probably the first zombie movie that I ever saw, and it's what really got me hooked on these kind of movies, zombies, apocalypse type films, stuff like that. And really it was all about, for me, this opening sequence that has always just stuck with me. For anyone that's seen it will know the first 10 minutes of this movie are absolutely insane. And this is before you even get the title credit opening. And I think it's just because the way you're introduced to Anna, where everything seems quite upbeat at the start, and you're just being given these little details of things around her that are starting to go wrong. And you see her, we meet her and her boyfriend together, and they're about to enjoy the weekend together. And then the next morning, as she wakes up, and you see the little girl from over the road, and there's just this explosively violent scene where she attacks the boyfriend out of nowhere, and all hell breaks loose from here. And we're just following Anna through the streets as she's just watching this complete breakdown of society. And yeah, it's an opening scene that's just always stuck with me. I still think now, even watching it today, it's one of the best opening sequences to a horror movie that I've ever seen. I think the shopping mall is such a brilliant setting to set a zombie apocalypse. And I don't know what it was, when I was younger, I went through a bit of an obsession watching this film on repeat. And I think it's just because I found something exciting about the idea of being hidden away, locked up in this mall with this group of people whilst all the world breaks down around them. It sounds quite weird to say that, but I don't know, when I was a teenager I just found that quite an exciting idea. And I think it's because usually a shopping mall, when you see it normally, it's full of people, full of life. they're noisy, everyone going about their routines and everything. And I think just seeing it when everything is so still, there's nobody there, you've just got these mannequins and these clothes and these coffee shops where there's not a soul there. They just have a strange quality about them. And for some reason, for me, it just makes it like a very exciting location to set an apocalypse film in. I like that we're actually following a group of characters here as opposed to just one or two throughout the storyline, because I feel like with this group, they give them distinct little qualities and separate personalities to how you can really tell each character apart and get to know them without having to spend a load of screen time with each one. And to me, when you sometimes have one character that you're following very closely, the dialogue can sometimes feel like it's just there to serve the purpose of moving the plot forward. And I like that they don't do that here. With here, because you have this bigger group dynamic, a lot of the conversations to me feel realistic to a bunch of people going through this situation where, you know, it feels natural, the conversation, I guess. And even though some of these characters aren't the most likeable people, I like how they find ways to surprise you throughout the plot where, even though some of them are quite bad in ways, they do things to kind of redeem themselves at the end. And especially the character of CJ, where he's this totally unlikable character when you first meet him, but by the end it's a very different story, and I like that. And just in general, they're just a very fun group of characters. You remember each one. They don't just feel like cannon fodder to be killed off one by the zombies. And yeah, I just really like the dynamic of these people as we go through this. I think it's extremely well paced as well, so that even though you're spending a lot of time in the shopping mall, you never feel bored. There's always something interesting or engaging happening on screen. So even though that really the opening scene and the final act as well are where you really get all of the zombie action and stuff, you never feel bored with the rest of the movie just because it is so entertaining. And there's even funny sequences in here as well. Like there's a particular scene where these characters are all on the roof and they're communicating with this gun store owner who's on the other side of the parking lot, and they're getting him to pick off and shoot these individual zombies. And it's just a really funny scene that comes in the middle of the movie just to kind of break the tension away from all the doom and gloom stuff. And it works really well. And I think because the movie finds that right tone between it being a dark horror but also being fun as well, I think that's what makes this one just so rewatchable. Saying that, there are a load of really good zombie moments throughout this. A lot of really great horror, gory effects and stuff as well. There's some pretty stomach-churning scenes. It's definitely not a tame film, despite the fact it's 20 years old now. It's still pretty extreme. And I like that they've done away with the old slow-moving, pale blue faces zombies of the original that Romero did. Because I think the main problem with that is they just weren't scary, were they? That's the issue. I feel like with a zombie film, you need to have that sense of anxiety and dread around these things coming in to get you. And with those original ones, because they were so slow, you could never feel that kind of heart-pumping, edge of your seat stress about it. You'd never got that. Whereas here, they've gone the more 28 days later route and made them fast and actually very, very intimidating, and I like that a lot. There's only two things about Dawn of the Dead that I don't particularly like. One of them is the whole scene with Andre and his pregnant girlfriend. Again, for those who have seen it will know what I'm talking about. I just find that scene to be a little bit grim, dark and depressing for the kind of movie that it's in. And yes, it is a violent horror movie, it's meant to be dark, but there's something about the tone of it where it's quite a fun experience as well. And I just feel like that scene in particular, it does kill the mood of the movie a little bit. I find myself kind of not really wanting to watch that scene when it comes on. It might just be a me thing. Other people might think that works quite well. And I kind of get what the story's doing there, whereas this guy who is, of course, is desperate for his child to be born for a number of reasons. And even though he recognises what's going to happen to his girlfriend, he knows that once you're bitten, you're done for. I like that about it, but again, just this kind of long, drawn-out, pretty gross scene. I just don't particularly enjoy watching it. The other thing is the ending, and everything up to the final end, the end credits is perfect, where you have Michael and all these characters out on the marina, and he obviously realises that he can't go with them. and it's just him looking at the sunrise as he sends them out, and it's a really bittersweet but really perfect conclusion to the story. And for some reason they decided to add all these end credits where they find this camcorder and they start to document what happened after they started going out on this boat and looking for the island. And to have it where it insinuates that the second they arrive there, they're all brutally killed within seconds, I just thought was a bit mean-spirited and didn't really fit as an ending for this movie. I thought that, again, that bittersweet ending was just so perfect for this. And to add all these extra really nasty scenes in there, I just don't like, to be honest. I don't necessarily hate films where they kill off all the characters at the end. It definitely can work sometimes, but it just kind of, it made it feel like that journey they all went through to get away from them all and make it to here. It made it just feel pointless, and something about it just doesn't really work for me. So yeah, overall though, really, really enjoyed Dawn of the Dead. Had a really good time revisiting this. And for a first film, it's pretty incredible, let's be honest. I think, especially as a horror remake as well, obviously horror remakes do not have a reputation for being of very high quality. And I think this is definitely one of the better ones, for sure. But anyway, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 rating. Please do let me know in the comments as well if you've seen Dawn of the Dead and what you think of it. Thanks a lot for watching my review of Dawn of the Dead. Please do leave me a like as well and subscribe to the channel if you've been enjoying my content. And I'll see you next time.